Gamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Oh, peace, peace, peace.
Today's hymn is on Sri Ramakrishna. This hymn is composed by Swami Shraddhananda, one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Sapashrat Sri Ramakrishna Stotra. Summary of the hymn is: Establisher of Dharma, embodiment of all Dharma, Supreme Teacher, O Sri Ramakrishna, salutations to you. O Mother Sri Sharada Devi, you are embodiment of all knowledge, salutations to you. O Sri Ramakrishna, you are immersed always in the good of the world. Hey Vireshwaram, my salutations to you. My salutations to you all who are devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. Sarvadharmasthaapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Sarvadharma Sthapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. Yathagre Dahika Shakti Ramakrishne Sthita Hiya. Yathagre Dahika Shakti Ramakrishne Sthita Hiya. Sarva Vidya Swarupam Sharadam Pranamamyaham. Sarva Vidya Swarupam Sharadam Pranamamyaham. Paratatve sada lino Ramakrishna samadhyaya. Paratatve sada lino Ramakrishna samadhyaya. Viresham tam namamyaham. Yo dharmasthapanarato Viresham प्रणमाम्यहम् रामकृष्ण गतप्राणा सर्वांस्तान् प्रणमाम्यहम् सर्वांस्तान् प्रणमाम्यहम्।
I am reading from the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 4. The topic is Christ the Messenger, delivered at Los Angeles, California, 1900. Swamiji says, "The wave rises on the ocean and there is a hollow. Again another wave rises, perhaps bigger than the former, to fall down again. Similarly, again to rise, driving onward. In the march of events, we notice the rise and fall, and we generally look towards the rise, forgetting the fall. But both are necessary and both are great. This is the nature of the universe, whether in the world of our thoughts, the world of our relations in society, or in our spiritual affairs. The same movement of succession of rises and falls is going on. We all know that God exists, and yet we do not see Him, we do not understand Him. Take one of these great messengers of light, compare his character with the highest ideal of God that you ever formed, and you will find that your God falls short of the ideal, and that the character of the prophet exceeds your conceptions. You cannot even form a higher ideal of God than what the actual embodied have practically realized and set before us as an example. Is it wrong, therefore, to worship these as gods? Is it a sin to fall at the feet of these man-gods and worship them as the only divine beings in the world? If they are really, actually, higher than all our conceptions of God, what harm is there in worshipping them? Not only is there no harm, but it is the only possible and positive way of worship. So we find Jesus of Nazareth, in the first place, the true Son of the Orient, intensely practical. He has no faith in this evanescent world and all its belongings. No need of text torturing, as is the fashion in the West. No need of stretching out texts until they will not stretch anymore. The best commentary on the life of a great teacher is his own life. The foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. This is what Christ says as the only way to salvation. He lays down no other way. Let us confess in sackcloth and ashes that we cannot do that. We still have fondness for me and mine. We want property, money, wealth. Woe unto us! Let us confess and not put to shame that great teacher of humanity. He had no family ties. But do you think that that man had any physical ideas in him? Do you think that this mass of light, this God and not man, came down to earth to be the brother of animals? And yet people make him preach all sorts of things. He had no sex ideas. He was a soul, nothing but a soul, just working a body for the good of humanity. And that was all his relation to the body. He had no other occupation in life, no other thought except that one, that he was a spirit. He was a disembodied, unfettered, unbound spirit. And not only so, but he, with his marvelous vision, had found that every man and woman, whether Jew or Gentile, whether rich or poor, whether saint or sinner, was the embodiment of the same undying spirit as himself. Therefore, the one work his whole life showed was to call upon them to realize their own spiritual nature. You are all sons of God, immortal spirit. No, he declared, the kingdom of heaven is within you. I and my Father are one. Dare you stand up and say, not only that, I am the Son of God, but I shall also find in my heart of hearts that I and my Father are one. That was what Jesus of Nazareth said. He never talks of this world and of this life. He has nothing to do with it, except that he wants to get hold of the world as it is and give it a push and drive it forward and onward until the whole world has reached to the effulgent light of God, until everyone has realized his spiritual nature, until death is vanished and misery banished. Let us therefore find God not only in Jesus of Nazareth, but in all the great ones that have preceded him, in all that came after him, and all that are yet to come. Our worship is unbounded and free. They are all manifestations of the same infinite God. They are all pure and unselfish. They struggled and gave up their lives for us, poor human beings. They each and all suffer vicarious atonement for every one of us, and also for all that are yet to come hereafter. Yes.
Now a short period of meditation. Good morning, friends. The Good Friday is, the next Friday is Good Friday, and followed by Easter Sunday. So we choose to remember Jesus and talk about the significance of Good Friday and Easter. As you all know, Good Friday is the most significant and holiest day to the Christian. It is the day of commemoration of crucifixion of Jesus Christ and his death at Calvary. Jesus, by accepting the crucifixion, took the sins of all human beings. If we believe in karma as Vedanti, Jesus was purest of human being, noblest of person. So what would make him suffer so much who had no evil karma in this world? So naturally he'd have to take the karma of others, and he had the power. Being the very high spiritual person, he had the power to take the sins of others. And that made him die in such a pathetic way by accepting crucifixion. He had to carry the cross, he was whipped, the Passion of Christ you all know. He was tortured, and then he was crucified with putting nail on hands and feet. This suffering, if we have to explain according to the karma of Vedanta, it has to be the karma of someone else. And so much of torture has to be the karma of all others who have really done wrong. And they take the karma. They say that when you touch the feet of holy person absorbs the evil karma of ours, or evil thought of ours. We become purified by being in the presence of holy personality, by remembering God, by touching the feet of God even in imagination. Once when one person touched something impure on the ground and wanted to purify herself, so the one way to purify is by taking a dip in a holy river. So it was a winter, and that lady wanted to go at night and take a dip in the holy river. Holy Mother said, "Don't go there, it's cold, you make us cold." She said, "I feel impure." She said, "Wash your feet nicely." I did it. Then sprinkle some Ganga water on her head. She said, "I also did that, but I don't feel I am purified enough. I feel like taking the dip in the river. In the winter, in the cold water, taking the dip, she will fall sick." Holy Mother said, "You don't have to do that. If you don't feel purified, even after sprinkling Ganga water, the purest thing which purified itself, everyone, then touch me." She said, "Come and touch my body." That would purify the person who thought she became impure by touching something. So like touching some pure personality, holy person, we get purified. So Jesus had to suffer so much just to purify the humanity and show them the light. That was one reason why he was crucified. If you know the story of how this crucifixion took place, all seems that it was planned and he was ready to die in that way. When the story, there was a Last Supper, and Jesus washed their hands and their feet and said, "This is the last time I'm doing that." And of his disciples, of his 12 disciples, one of the disciples was, he was a little greedy, you see. In God's all pure direct disciples also some happen like that. The Judas Iscariot, he was sold by the temple priests, and he took a bribe of 30 pieces of silver to make Jesus arrested. Already the priests were finding some difficulty in running their temple, and their business was going to fall, and the teaching that they were giving about how to be purified, how to be religious, were all centered around making money somehow, teaching like that. There was no pure spirituality in that. Jesus wanted to purify the whole process of worship. whole process of human thought, and what he preached was making their worldly life a little difficult, and they wanted to arrest Jesus, wanted to eliminate Jesus. Jesus knew all this. One of the stories said Jesus said, "Go to Judas, go." And Judas goes to the temple and brings the temple guards and said that the temple guard asked, "How will I know among 12 people who is Jesus?" Because Jesus 1 and 12 disciples, one of them was Judas, the remaining were 12. Who is Jesus? All were of similar age. Jesus was, they say, some 33, 32 years of age. He died in that age. He was, say, they were born on 4 BC and died on 29 BC, AD. So Judas said, "I will go and kiss Jesus." By that you will understand that person is Jesus. Jesus knew everything was going to happen, what would follow him. And when Judas did this, and the temple priest arrested him, other disciples were very sad, angry with Judas. And then Jesus tells to Peter, "Why are you becoming angry with that? You yourself will deny me thrice in this night." He was the most favorite disciple of Jesus. He never thought that he will deny Jesus as his teacher. But Jesus prophesied that you will deny me in this very night 3 times that you know me. And it happened when they took Peter was going, someone said, "He is the follower of Jesus." Someone called, "Do you know Jesus?" "No, I don't know." Like that, 3 incidents happened. Jesus knew everything, what is going to happen. That's why Jesus was taken from there to Annas, the father-in-law of the high priest, Caiaphas. That was the high priest who was at the root of all this conspiracy against Jesus Christ. Because the whole priests of the temple were against Jesus because he was so new, he was so advanced of his time, and he was so pure, and he was having great influence, he was touching the heart of the people. That's why they were annoyed and angry because of their self-interest. So Annas interrogated Jesus, and then Jesus was bound there. All is done by Jewish temple, not that Romans have come. All is the conspiracy of Jewish priests, the temple priest. And then from Annas' house, Jesus was sent to Caiaphas, the head priest, the high priest. And where there was at that night, it was on the Thursday night, and there was a Sanhedrin was held. Sanhedrin, the assembly of the Jewish leaders and priests, they all were assembled. Jesus was questioned there for various conflicting testimony. There was false testimony against Jesus, many people said. They couldn't understand the sayings of Jesus. When he said Jesus that I am the king of Jews, that also didn't understand. He wasn't the king who will wear the crown and sit on the throne. He was the king of the heart of the Jews. That was he meant, but who will understand that? They were far behind. When Jesus was asked many conflicting questions, he didn't answer. He was ready. Finally, Caiaphas asked him, "I adjure you by the living God," God is living, that idea they had, "to tell us, are you the anointed one, the Son of God?" Jesus said, "You have said it. And in time, you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Almighty, coming on the clouds of heaven." It is more than clear. Though he didn't directly say, "Yes, I am the Son of God," but he had said that earlier. And when he says Son of Man with M capital, it means that the man from whom all man have been created, Son of Man. High priest condemned Jesus for blasphemy, to say a human being. How could they understand the incarnation of God, the Son of God? Ordinarily, though he was the high priest, but he was not a high-souled person. He was not a very spiritual person. He was on the hierarchy of the temple, he was a high priest. He had no spiritual insight at all. And as ordinary people cannot recognize the incarnation of God, Sri Ramakrishna said, Sri Ramachandra was recognized as incarnation of God by only a few handful of saints and sages. Rest of them thought he is a very good person. He is Maryada Purushottam. He is the son of Dasaratha. Very honest, very ideal human being. But incarnation of God, very difficult to understand. To Sri Ramakrishna, so many people came. So many people used to be in the temple. All thought he was a priest, was loved by the temple authorities, by Rani Rasmani and Mathur Babu, but he is a simple priest. They were giving them unwanted or even more than what he deserves, that honor and respect. That was the idea. Who will understand him as incarnation of God? Slowly it reveals to the people. Few people understood during that time. One of those were learned person, Girish Ghosh, Ramchandra Datta, they were very learned and wise person. Even very simple persons, like the Chinu Sankhari, the one who used to make bangles of conch, Shankha. So that in the village knew that he is incarnation of God. Some Rasik method, one sweeper, he understood that he is a very high soul, he is incarnation of God. Like that one to Ramachandra, not only says that he is an incarnation of God, but that Guhaka, who used a boatman who made him cross the Saryu river, he also knew that he is incarnation of God. You know the story in Ramayana, when Rama was crossing the boat, the boatman, the Guhaka, the king of, leader of the boat people, he was himself crossing and rowing the boat. He said, I cannot let you come into my boat without washing your feet. I will have to first wash your feet and then I will let you go. He knew that Ramachandra was the incarnation of God. Ramachandra asked, why you have to wash my feet? He said, I have heard many things about you. You once touched the stone and it turned into a human being. When Ahalla was there, since there was a wound that she touched and she regained. She had become stone by curse of her husband, and she became human being by the holy touch of the holy feet of Sri Ramachandra. He said, if something happens like that to my boat and my boat becomes a human being, then how will I run my life? How will I earn my living? So I have to wash your feet. He wanted to wash the feet of the Lord. That was the thing, he made the story. And while crossing this thing, when Ramachandra wanted to give him the money, the fare, he said, no, I won't take fare from you. So why? Because we have a similar job, we have the same occupation, and people of same occupation don't charge for each other. Ramachandra said, what do you mean by that? Ramachandra was the prince, the son of Dasaratha. He was a boatman, simple, ordinary, poor person. How can I have same occupation? He said, I ferry people from one shore to another, and you ferry people from this world of sea of samsara. It's all ferrying. You are God, you take us from darkness to light, from death to immortality. And I take from one shore to another. We both ferry people across. So we have the same occupation. I won't take. That person also knew he was the incarnation of God. Here Jesus was not known, but some have high regards, like his disciples. 11 were very staunch followers, only Judas was a betrayer. And high priest condemned him for blasphemy. Now also there are blasphemy laws in someone, they are of a very high law. Here also blasphemy law was like death sentence was the thing. So they declared, the Sanhedrin, the Jewish court declared blasphemy. Sanhedrin gave Jesus death sentence. It was the blasphemy law that we have now in 21st century. It was there in even the 1st century. That time also it was there. In the morning, it was all overnight on Thursday. Whole thing happened in night. Last Supper, he's being caught, he brought to Sanhedrin and the high priest, and then in the morning, the assembly brought Jesus to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. charges against Jesus were, and they said 3 charges. They made it political, you see. There was nothing like that. He said, he is subverting the nation. What was that? Oh, King of Jews, that might be. Subverting the nation, that was one charge, because Romans will listen to that and be afraid. The second was opposing taxes to Caesar. So that also Jesus had said, you have to pay taxes to God. It was in a different sense. And the third charge was making himself a king. What king? Do not understand. And even if they understood, they wanted to put some charge to Jesus, and they made it in a political way. Pilate inquired Jesus about the charges, but could find nothing of those charges in the innocent Jesus. Jesus was so innocent, so pure, the purity emanated from him. Pilate referred the case to King Herod, who was the ruler of Galilee and who was in Jerusalem at the time. So he was from there, he was taken to King Herod. King Herod asked questions to him, but Jesus did not give any answer to any of his questions. But still Herod was not annoyed. He sent back Jesus back to Pilate. Now Pilate saw it by his questions, though he was charged such strong charges against the government, but he found he is a blameless person, he innocent person. And he found that somehow these priests were against that and were annoyed or angry with Jesus, but Jesus was a nice man. Somehow Pilate's wife had also regard and respect and deep sympathy for Jesus. Somehow she knew so many good things that Jesus was doing in the society. Government will knew, and it had gone to this thing. Pilate wanted somehow Jesus, this innocent man, why they want to punish and give him death sentence. He said, today is the day of Passover, and by the tradition we will release one of the people convicted for death. You all convicted him to death, but there is one murderer, Barabbas, and one Jesus. Whom do you want to free? He thought perhaps Barabbas was a condemned man. He was a definitely known murderer suffering the sentence. They said, no, free Barabbas and crucify Jesus. All were instigated by the high priest. That was the thing. And all priests were together. So he washed his hand, and finally he had to order that, being afraid of riots and upheaval in the Jewish community. He couldn't stand to the truth, to the pure justice of the time, and he ordered the crucifixion. Jesus was brought to Calvary, the place also known as Golgotha. There stands now a big church, Church of Sepulchre, and Jesus was nailed and was put on the cross. And Jesus was on the cross for 6 hours. And when he was being nailed, he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. That was the forgiveness that came from this. This shows that how Jesus was superhuman being, as was being read in the morning. That Jesus was the God manifested, the God incarnated. That's why he came us to show how much we can forgive to our people who commit adversity against us. But to what a degree the forgiveness can reach. And when we find such forgiveness, only God can forgive. And we can try to imitate God, to be like Him in the forgiveness, in the endurance. But it was so painful. Once he cried, my God, why have you forsaken me? Last 3 hours, they say from 12 to 3 p.m. were very painful. And that time after that, it was dark fell on Jesus. Jesus didn't want to do any harm to the people. He wanted God to forgive all those who have committed crime. Now, after 6 hours, he was declared dead. He was brought down from the cross and was laid in a stone. And there, the Roman soldiers had to pierce his body to finally find whether he is dead or not. And it was pierced to prove that he was dead. It was a dead body. There was one member of Sanhedrin, of that Jewish community leadership court. His name is Joseph of Arimathea. Joseph of Arimathea was sympathetic to Jesus. Though he was in the court, he couldn't say many were against his thing, but he didn't want Jesus. He knew about Jesus. So he went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body to be taken care of. He wanted to take charge of the body of Jesus. And because he was an honored person, he had a tomb of his own. In Jewish, that high people of the high society of high Judaic people, they had a tomb made up in the forest, in the stone, in that hill. That stone was, there was a cave made in stone, and that was the tomb. They were not buried in the ground. That was the Jewish custom. The body was wrapped on a linen with some medicine, they call it spice, and then it was kept in the tomb, and tomb's door was covered. Only rich people had that tomb. So Joseph was that one of the rich people, and because he had somehow sympathy and admiration for Jesus, he said, I will give my tomb to Jesus. So he was given the tomb, he was not buried on the ground. Other people, ordinary people, they bury on the ground. But these rich people, honored people, nobles of the Jewish society, they had that tomb. So the Jesus' body was covered in linen and was kept in the tomb. And tomb's door, the gate, the entrance was covered with a huge stone. Night fell. Next day, nobody came to see. Why? Because it was a Sabbath day. In fact, from the evening, after the sunset, Sabbath starts. Then no work can be done. People are supposed to be at home and pray, nothing else. No other worldly work are supposed to be done. Not even cooking. Not even cooking, they cannot cook. So Sabbath started and nobody came. The Sabbath continues until the morning of Sunday. So Sunday early morning, Mary Magdalene came, who was also present during the crucifixion. Mary Magdalene, Jesus' mother, and some of his disciples were there. So Mary Magdalene went to the tomb on Sunday morning, because Saturday was the Sabbath day. No work was done on the Sabbath day. And she found there was no body of Jesus. Jesus had risen. And other time that Jesus on that Sunday went to his disciples and also to his mother and said, see, I am risen from death. And he knew that people may not believe. She said, touch me. And they touched and found Jesus among them. And there was the great joy. So this is the story of crucifixion and Easter. Crucifixion was like that, and Jesus gave his blood for the humanity. And for Christians follow that, and they consider this to be the very important day for prayer, for mourning, for worshipping, for thinking, for the gratitude to Jesus for taking our sin and dying and with so much of suffering. And it's very important and very holy day in the Christianity. Not the Christmas day, the birth of Jesus, which was already there, they say. The Christmas day was perhaps prevalent as a day of celebration even before the Christianity came. But Good Friday is a very Christian day of prayer. Now the Easter was the day when they all felt happy that they felt happy not only by seeing Jesus, but by seeing that God had proved that there was so much special. One of the accusations to Jesus during when he was being flogged, when he was being whipped was, if he is a son of God, then why he is not being saved by God? God is all powerful. Why then he is suffering and no one is coming to his help? Why he can't save himself? But that's how the God suffers for the humanity. How will they know? So that was the thing. Even the disciples might have doubt. Even the disciples are not so strong to support Jesus, and they denied. The foremost disciple like Peter denied having known Jesus. Now when Jesus arose from death, On the Easter day, then they had ample proof that Jesus is none but the Son of God, the teacher, the light of the world. And that strength gave this to this 11 disciples, remaining 11 disciples, to preach the teachings of Jesus Christ, even at the cost of their own life, and spread the message throughout the world. They did as much they could do. People accepted the life. Who didn't see Jesus, also they could hear from those who had seen Jesus. So that's how the message of Jesus spread to the whole world. Because that message contained the truth. It was the reality. There was the force of spiritual power behind the message of Jesus. It was so new. There was all about love, forgiveness, and forbearance. That was the message of Jesus that the world had not seen. The earlier prophets had not told about that, and it was very kindness, compassion was so much preached that Jesus and world followed, and it became more prevalent after the kings were converted to Christianity, when they really understood. Some kings, though many are very warriors and brave and they are for worldly life, but it is the kings who can understand the true spirituality. In the Hinduism also we have the example of kings like Janaka, who used to rule a great kingdom, king like Ashoka. But they were so able to understand the subtleties of spirituality that Janaka was a great understand. He used to, the teacher of the Vedas. There used to be debate in him. He was a great teacher where even Shukadeva came to learn, who was a knower of Brahmagyani. That was Janaka, the ruler of one huge kingdom in India. So was other kings in that time in Palestine and other Greece. So they slowly became Christian and Christianity spread. So this Easter, what it says, it's often we find Easter is the sign of, we celebrate with the egg and the bunny, and if not bunny, the bunny chocolate, and the chocolate eggs and all that. That all shows about the fertility, about growth. So God impels us to grow. That material enjoyment is there. Jesus came to life and he is not dead like any ordinary man. He was extraordinary, he was not ordinary human being. So that is one message. The message for us about this is how we can be reborn to our own faith. How we need to understand, go deeper, to feel that aham brahmasmi, I am that self. We need to grow in that line to manifest and understand my true real nature as the Atman, as the self. That will be the Vedantic interpretation of Easter. Easter coming back to life. Life of spirituality. Life into the reality of the self. Reality of spirit. That becomes real Easter for us. Easter celebration for us. And Easter is at present is at the end of a 40-day period of fasting, prayer and penance. That's called Lent. Preceding Easter, 40 days, the Christians, they observe Lent when they have their austerity in eating and they keep fasting. Fasting, they don't keep fasting like the Ramadan, that they don't eat at daytime. They keep fasting, they don't eat something, like they don't eat meat or some other kind of food. So to remember God, to be more, a little practice of fasting, that type of fasting they do. But it is supposed, for 40 days, they are supposed to pray for 40 days. And there's little penance, more of a charitable and respectable work they want to do. So it comes at the end of that, a day like the Eid among the Muslims, this Easter is the day of joy and merriment. So people don't say, when they say Good Friday, people don't say Happy Good Friday, but they will say Happy Easter. Because Good Friday is not a happy day, it's a really spiritual day to remember God, to remember God's sacrifice, to remember God's love for us. It is to say happy for that day is too shallow. It is a day of more introspection, it's the day of Good Friday, and Easter is the day of joy and merriment. And for Vedantis, the Easter reminds us to reborn to our own self and direct our energies to realize our true self. Swami Vivekananda's lecture that was read in the morning is wonderful on Jesus Christ, the Christ the Messenger. Some few other portions I would like to read from here. About Jesus, how much respect, how Ramakrishna mission is connected with Jesus Christ. The inception of monastic order of Ramakrishna mission happened by the inspiration of Jesus Christ on 24th of December 1886, when Swami Vivekananda inspired his brother disciples to renounce the world and to take the vow of celibacy and renunciation, inspired by the life of Jesus. He was all talking about Jesus without knowing that it was the 24th December. So, then they all agreed to the glowing words, inspired words of Swami Vivekananda, and they all became monks of our order. They were not all together 16 at that time, they were 12 at that time in Hardcore, but they were inspired by Jesus. Swami Vivekananda loved Jesus very much. He said, if Jesus was there, I would wash his feet, not by my tears, but by the blood of my heart. That was his feeling for Jesus. He said one very nice glowing paragraph on that talk. The 3 years of his ministry were like one compressed, concentrated age. 3 years only Jesus preached his ministry, which it has taken 1900 years to unfold. The 3 years for it all, even we have not finally, so poetically Swamiji said this thing. And who knows how much longer it will take. Little men like you and me are simply the recipients of just a little energy. Though Swamiji said you and me, read here you. Swamiji was like Jesus yesterday. A few minutes, a few hours, a few years at best are enough to spend it all. As if we all have energy. That energy that stretches up to our children, up to our grandchildren, very unlikely great-grandchildren. Nothing remains there. After that, nothing will remain. Your name will be known by only who will see your heritage tree, who will research in that, a very few of that. Heritage tree, name, nothing is there of you, only name. So, our existence with us, when we die with our children, and something with our grandchildren if they were with us. After that, nothing remains. All energy as if it was, all exhausted in these 3 generations at most. But in Jesus, Swami Vivekananda said, very wonderful comparison with the stretching of energy to its fullest, and then we are gone forever. But mark this giant that came, centuries and ages pass. Yet the energy that he left upon the world is not yet stretched, nor yet expended to its full. It goes on adding new vigor as the ages roll on. The best commentary of the life of a great teacher is his own life. That's what he said. The messenger came to show the path, that the spirit is not in forms, that it is not through all sorts of vexations and naughty problems of philosophy that you know the spirit. Better that you had no learning. Better that you never read a book in your life. These are not at all necessary for salvation. Neither wealth, nor position, nor power, not even learning. But what is necessary is that one thing, purity. Blessed are the pure in heart, for the spirit in its own nature is pure. How can it be otherwise? It is of God. It has come from God. In the language of the Bible, it is the breath of God. In the language of the Quran, it is the soul of God. Do you mean to say that the Spirit of God can ever be impure? But alas, it has been, as it were, covered over with the dust and dirt of ages through our own actions, good and evil. Various works which were not correct, which were not true, have covered the same spirit with the dust and dirt of the ignorance of ages. It is only necessary to clear away the dust and dirt, and then the Spirit shines immediately. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Where goest thou to seek for the kingdom of God? Asked Jesus of Nazareth. When it is there within you. Cleanse the spirit, and it is there. It is already yours. How can you get what is not yours? It is yours by right. You are the heirs of immortality, sons of the eternal Father, from the Son of God to sons of God. We are all children of immortality, children of God, having all the qualities that God has, all the purity, knowledge, love and bliss. Nitya, Shuddha, Buddha, Mukta, Swabhava. Our very essence is eternally pure, conscious and free. Manifesting that and progressing towards the manifestation of that power, that which is our real nature, is the message and significance of Easter. Thank you very much.